All right, welcome. This video is going to talk about profit maximization. All right, so in this video, you will learn the principle of marginal analysis, which is something we've already touched on in Unit 2. Also, how a firm decides when to stop producing. What's the profit maximizing quantity of output for all types of firms, and when is production profitable? All right, so the principle of marginal analysis. Remember, when we talk about marginal thinking or marginal analysis, we're talking about the value of doing one additional unit of something. So eating one more cookie, one more chicken wing, of hiring one more worker. And so we have the principle, which is that every activity should continue until the marginal benefit equals the marginal cost. So if eating one more chicken wing would have a larger marginal benefit than a marginal cost, then you should eat that chicken wing. You stop eating chicken wings when that marginal benefit is equal to the marginal cost. If you were to eat one more and it was going to be where the marginal cost is greater than the marginal benefit, you definitely shouldn't do that, because now your marginal benefit is going to be negative compared to your cost. All right, so a couple things to keep in mind, again, from past videos. Talking about total revenue here. So total revenue equals price times quantity. So the price, $5, the quantity sold, 10, 5 times 10 equals 50. That would be the total revenue, okay? The profit, to solve that, we look at total revenue minus total cost. In the last video, we talked about economic profit versus accounting profit. From this point forward, we're not going to really make a distinction between those two, but just know we're talking about economic profit in this class. Unless the question specifically said the word accounting profit, it means, unless it does that, everything else means economic profit. So when we say total costs, we're saying explicit and implicit costs are included in that. So again, that's just your formula for profit. Total revenue minus total cost equals your profit. And we have the principle that as output increases, so as you produce more, both total revenue and total cost rise. So as you produce more, that quantity, Q number is getting bigger, P stays the same, so P times Q is going to equal a larger number, so your total revenue will grow, and your total cost will grow because you need more workers or you need more inputs of whatever kind. So again, kind of review things to keep in mind in this video. All right, so again, we're going to kind of just break it up and again review marginal revenue, marginal cost. So marginal revenue is the additional revenue earned from selling one more unit of output. So in this case, you have some numbers down below. When we go from 0 to 1, our total revenue was $0 and it becomes $10. So it's that change. And so that change is 10 minus 0, which equals 10. If we look at the third unit sold, so quantity 3, our total revenue is $24. It was previously 18, so our marginal revenue is 24 minus 18, which equals 6. All right. Now, bear in mind that this is the case. So you have marginal revenue equals the change in total revenue. You do have to divide that by the change in quantity of output. In this case, the quantity output is increasing by 1 each time. If we were to go from quantity of 2 to quantity of 4, then you would have to divide. So you'd do something like 28 minus 18, because we're going from the fourth unit to the second. So our total revenues increased by 10. 28 minus 18 is 10. And then we would have to do divided by the change in the quantity, which is 2. So we would do 10 divided by 2. So the marginal revenue would be 5 in that case. But you usually aren't going to have questions to ask you that. So very simply, it's the change in total revenue over the change in quantity. And that change in quantity typically is 1, but be alert and be aware to make sure it is. Because if it isn't, you do need to divide by that number. Marginal cost works the exact same way, except this time instead of talking about the additional revenue earned, we're now looking at the additional cost incurred from selling one more unit of output. So it costs more to produce more, again, like we said a couple slides ago, and so you solve this the same way. You do the change in total cost divided by the change in quantity. So if you look at, for example, let's go to the fourth unit. The total cost of producing 4 units is 56. The cost of just that fourth unit, we do 56 minus 44 because that's what the previous unit cost. So 56 minus 44 equals 12. And since our change in quantity is 1, we have 12 over 1, which equals 12. All right, so that would be our marginal cost. That's the cost incurred by selling one additional unit of output. All right, so here is one of the most important things in all of microeconomics. In fact, this is going to come on like 3 slides in a row, so it's going to show you how important of an idea this is. The optimal output rule. All right, so what is the optimal amount for a firm to produce? When do they maximize their profits? Well, they do so by producing the quantity, of output at which the marginal revenue of the last unit produced is equal to its marginal cost. All right, so remember, we're not looking at total revenue, total cost. We're not looking at average total cost or average total revenue. We are looking at marginal revenue, marginal cost. We are always looking, our question is, should we produce one more unit? If the answer is yes, because we find out that marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, then we keep producing. We stop producing at that moment when marginal revenue becomes equal to marginal cost. All right, so in this table below, you can see, let's look at the third unit, for example. Total cost is 44. Our marginal cost is 8 because total cost for 2 units is 36. For the third unit was 44. 44 minus 36 is 8. That's our marginal cost. In this case, the price equals $18. So every unit sold adds $18 to our marginal revenue. So marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, so we should keep producing additional units. And that's going to be true up until we get to the point of the 6th unit. When we get to the 6th unit, we see that our total cost is 90. But again, that's not really what matters. What matters is our marginal cost. 90 minus 72 equals 18. So our marginal cost of producing that unit is $18. Our marginal revenue is $18. So this is the point where we would be content to stop producing. So our net gain all the way to the right is 0. Marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So we will stop producing when we hit that 6th quantity or the 6th output. Again, just to reiterate it, because this is probably the single most important thing in microeconomics in this course, marginal revenue equals marginal cost. That is always the answer. We're going to start talking about different types of companies and firms. We'll talk about perfect competition and monopoly and monopolistic competition, oligopolies. It doesn't matter what we talk about. The optimal output rule for all of them is to produce until marginal revenue equals marginal cost. When marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, produce more. If marginal cost is greater than marginal revenue, produce fewer units of a good. Produce until those two things are equal, and you can see that represented graphically for you. Marginal cost curve, again, this is just showing the same idea. We've already shown it in a table form. So what happens here is you have initially it's downward sloping. That's because the first couple of workers that you add are going to make you a lot more productive, a lot more efficient. So your marginal cost will fall initially, but then very quickly it will start to rise as those you have to pay for the additional workers, and we're having diminishing marginal returns is what's happening here. So this is a swoosh shaped curve, and that's what you're going to call it, a swoosh shaped curve like the Nike check. Marginal revenue curve, we're going to focus on a lot more because there are different types of this, and you can see we have 2 examples here. One's horizontal, so that's where we take the price as given, so the marginal revenue is the same for every unit because in our example before it was $18, so every unit sold added $18. That doesn't have to be the case. Sometimes if we have a downward sloping demand curve, we will actually have a downward sloping marginal revenue, but don't worry about that just yet. Again, just to restate it because it can't be stated enough, our optimal output rule is to produce the quantity at which marginal revenue equals marginal cost at all times for all firms. So when is production profitable? Well, again, remember that we're talking about profit here, total revenue minus total cost. We are going to produce to the quantity where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. So how do we know if it is profitable or not? The answer is it depends on the price of the good. And then you have in italics there, selling the optimal quantity at market price must result in at least a normal profit, which is 0 or more. So what that means is the price of the good has to be quantity at market price. I was trying to keep this under 10 minutes, so I just got distracted looking at the clock. Now I'm over 10 minutes. That sucks, but I'm not going to redo this. Selling the optimal quantity at market price must result in at least a normal profit. So when we add up our total revenue, subtract our total costs, our economic profit has to be equal to 0, and then we'll be profitable. And if it's not, then we're not profitable. And we'll talk about what decisions firms will make as a result of that information, definitely coming up soon in the very near future. This has been a LaMoney production.